Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome. This is Sunday FUNDAY Week 12 edition here on this Sunday, November the 17th, 2024. I am Chris Phillips. He is Dave Shumate. He is Cole Thompson. We are reacting and breaking down everything that happened in Week 12 of the 2024 SEC football season. A slate, gentlemen, that some folks wanted to identify as maybe somewhat of a sleepy slate, but if you don't know by now, if this season hasn't taught you, the flair for the dramatics never goes away. The drama never ends. Expect the unexpected. And gentlemen, we got just that yesterday throughout a wild and wacky day of college football, not just in the SEC, by the way. Maybe we can touch on that by end of show. But again, appreciate you all tuning in. Again, guys, as always, make sure you like, subscribe, turn on notifications. Check us out via podcast where you get those. You can also find us across all social media platforms as well as our website, secunfiltered.com. And again, we're brought to you by our friends over at Prize Picks, proud partners of the SEC Unfiltered Tour, which again took us to beautiful Athens, Georgia this weekend, Sanford Stadium, where the Dawgs took care of the Vols late last night. Again, we'll get into that one in a second. But again, make sure you go to prizepicks.com, promo code SECU to get a $50 bonus when you play your first $5 or more lineup. And again, that applies for college football, college basketball, NBA, NHL, whatever it may be, and you can mix and match those lineups. So again, it's not over when the college football season ends. Again, prizepicks.com, promo code SECU to get that $50 bonus today. Sunday FUNDAY Week 12 edition. I am Chris Phillips. He is Dave Shumate. He is Cole Thompson. Gentlemen, good morning. What a weekend of college football it was yet again. It never disappoints us. And I'm not surprised to say that, but really excited to be chatting with you guys and breaking it all down here on this Sunday morning.
Yeah, we're getting in the midst of it. We talked a little bit off air, like I'm always saying that, because we're giddy to get on, talk about all these scenarios, break down these games. So we're talking on it for Chris aspect. Well, let's just go live so we can discuss this, guys. So, yeah, if you saw some of me and Cole's reactions yesterday, I thought this was a phenomenal game, the Georgia-Tennessee game that Chris was at. Hell, I think the best game of the weekend, if you really were watching from just a football standpoint. South Carolina, Missouri was a fun football game to go back and forth and watch. Both teams, I think, played well. You had people overcoming adversity. That was a good game to watch. Florida with the upset, typical. LSU coming in, none of us picked it, but again, we weren't shocked. That line didn't move a lot. 4 scared you. Brian Kelly and that personnel is just, it's caught up to them. It's season's in. Typical hangover after the Alabama game that they traditionally struggle with Arkansas. It is now Florida this year. I'm not sold right now. They beat Vanderbilt coming off a bye week. We saw what Vanderbilt did to Alabama off a bye week a couple of weeks ago. So dangerous spot. Can you imagine if they finish 7-5? Like just the total downfall for the past month.
Did you see where Diego Pavia was this weekend? He was hanging out with Jelly Roll at the UFC fight or whatever it was.
Was he in Madison Square Garden? Good for him.
Yeah, he was in Madison Square Garden. I actually saw it this.
Good about the upset.
I saw it this morning. No, I saw it this morning on Instagram. I feel better about the upset because I think vibes are high with the Padres. But either way,
you think Jelly Roll's rubbing off on him?
I don't know, but Diego Pavia is living his best life, which should scare Brian Kelly to death. Yeah,
boys, everyone say it with me now. We talk about it every single week. What's the number one rule? Stop sleeping on the week schedule. Stop sleeping on it. Stop calling them week schedules. There's no such thing. None. Because the more chaos has occurred in college football, now there's a conversation about putting a 3-loss team into the playoff. Now there are conversations about what is the right number of teams for the SEC. Now there are conversations of who do you need to see get upset if you're a Tennessee fan trying to get into the playoff. But it was a boring week, right? It was always going to be a boring week. I could have gone to hang out and go to a Christmas market in November because that's what people like to do for some reason. I could have gone and set up my Christmas decorations and spent time with the family. I could have gone to don't say the quiet part out loud. Could have gone to a wedding. Could have done a bunch of things. And you would have missed pure chaos on a Saturday afternoon. And really just good overall games top to bottom. I think that the biggest takeaway for me is that we saw some really good games of college football on Saturday in Week 12.
And again, not just in the SEC. Again, end of show, we can highlight some of the big upsets that happened across the country because those are going to affect the SEC. Cole, you highlighted that yesterday with just, the shaping of the playoff, and that's something where we don't want to beat it to death, but we are at the point where time is dwindling down, and that playoff picture clears up more and more and more as we go. But, guys, let's first start again Dave mentioned it. I mentioned it. We all did. The game that I was at last night in Athens, Georgia, Sanford Stadium, Dawgs get the 31-17 win, which, by the way, guys, great gambling night in Athens. Georgia on the spread cashes, the under cashes by half a point if you got it at 48.5, which I did, thankfully. Either way, though, great football game. I want to start with this, guys, seeing this in person. Third straight week I've seen Georgia. And I mentioned this, guys, just before we went live and talking about this game. And I was talking about this at the tailgate yesterday with a lot of folks. That going into the game, very well documented. I picked Georgia. I thought they'd win by double digits. I thought they would cover. But as the game got closer, I'll admit, guys, I got a little bit more nervous because when you talked about football reasons, what we had seen from Georgia to this point, or to that point, if you will, what we had seen from Georgia, again, my third straight week seeing them. Heck, I saw them early in the year, too, in Tuscaloosa against Alabama. But third straight week seeing them, watching them against Ole Miss and the way they got bullied up front. And then you think about Tennessee and their personnel. What do they do well? Front seven, run the football with Dylan Sampson, right? They want to punch you in the face and beat you physically. It made me nervous because I'm like, I feel like I can give you 3 or 4 football reasons why Tennessee can beat Georgia or will beat Georgia. And with Georgia, the thing I kept coming back to was I trust Kirby Smart in this spot. That's just, above all else, I trust Kirby Smart in this spot. We talked about backs against the wall. Isn't it ironic, guys? Again, we've seen this play out multiple times. The team that's got their backs against the wall, season on the line, they have everything to lose. That's typically the one that's winning these football games. For whatever reason, the sense of urgency just plays a factor in this. And, guys, it played out exactly that way. I mean, Georgia hadn't had a night game in a year. By the way, Sanford Stadium was electric. That place was deafening loud. The whole Sanford Stadium isn't loud thing. I think it got thrown out the window last night because it absolutely had an effect on that football game. Couple false starts for Tennessee. You could tell at times I thought they were having some communication issues. Georgia just sacked up in the trenches, guys. And Carson Beck played the best game of his 2024 season. It was like Georgia discovered, they were like, oh, man, I forgot Oscar Delp still is on this team. Benjamin Jurasic is still on this team. Like, Tennessee had no answer, and we knew the secondary was questionable, but it started with Georgia up front, giving enough of a push, time for Carson Beck. Give Carson Beck a lot of credit, too. I thought he did a great job, not known as fleet of foot, improvising in the pocket. He got out of the pocket a few times, had a couple first down runs. He had that run into the end zone for a touchdown. Like, he did enough to keep their defense honest. And, again, I think Tennessee's secondary, we can all agree, it's not like it's one of the best secondaries in the league, and they were able to expose that, especially across the middle. The fire Mike Bobo chants, those go away for at least a week because, and because of the game he called. Typical Kirby Smart masterclass in the second half, guys. I mean, it's 17-17 on your home field. I'm sure Kirby goes in a half. Buckle your freaking chin straps, and we're going to shut these guys out in the second half. This is our game. We're going to take this game. And then, guys, the most vintage Georgia Bulldogs drive there at the end.
Yeah.
And talking to, again, good friend of mine that I won't name on air. I'm sure he wouldn't mind, but I won't name on air. That is a DNA trait. That is Georgia DNA right there. You got 8 minutes to go. You put together a job. We're going to let it hang. We're on our home field. We're going to punch you in the face and lean on you and lean on you and lean on you and put this game away. That's exactly what they did, guys. It was so vintage Georgia. And, last night's result did not surprise me. I trusted Kirby Smart in that spot. I expected him to wake this football team up and for them to wake up. And again, guys, we probably should have expected it even more because we talk about home field advantage so much and how important it is. And I mean, guys, this was this team's first home game at night in a year, right? And it made a difference. This team looked more focused. They looked more locked in. They just, the intensity, the energy, again, being back in the corner. And it goes back to Kirby Smart. This football team is reflective of their head coach, and they've got the best head coach in the country. And I'll tell you this, we love talking playoff. Cole loves talking about this team, top 12, that team. All right? You don't want this team in the playoff. You don't want to face Georgia in the playoff. Like, because you messed around with a 12-team playoff, you thought it's going to give more teams opportunity. No, it's going to give a team like Georgia and Alabama some gimmies during the season. And here comes 10-2 Georgia. You got to – okay, good luck. Good luck. Because that Georgia team last night, that team can win the national championship. Like, straight up. I'm not trying to, like, overblow what we saw, but you done messed around and widened the field, and now that Georgia team can sneak in. Like, and if you got to go to Athens, yeah, okay. All right, have fun with that. So I left thoroughly impressed with Georgia. They finally woke up and I think became or sort of played like the team I think we knew they were capable of being. And, again, a lot of positive to take away, but that vintage drive at the end, the Kirby Smart masterclass in the second half, and Carson Beck putting together his best game. Those are the things. And Georgia not turning the football over. We got to look at what this team can be when they don't turn it over.
Yeah, I got to give Stacey Searles an offensive line. I think that's what started when Beck has a pocket. I mean, anybody, Garrett Nussmeier, Steve Blake, and the Chad Blake Rufino. Any quarterback, when you give them time in the pocket to be able to make plays, that's what happened last night. I thought the big turnaround in the play was Carson Beck going to pick up with that 3rd and 8 with his legs. It was a first down. It wasn't a touchdown. It kind of turned when they were down 10-0, trying to go score to get it 10-7. That turnaround. But, yeah, I mean, I agree with you, Chris. Like, there's been a lot of things that's happened in college football this year in 2024 that has been crazy. I think this would have been the craziest thing in this environment, in this situation, Georgia to lose this game, because it's kind of the blueprint of the program that they're not going to come into your house and beat you. And again, Kirby Smart, Glenn Shumate, they own Josh Heupel from an offensive standpoint. I mean, they've literally – I mean, I have to go look up exactly the numbers they played over the last 3 years, but it's nothing. I mean, they've generated really no offense outside of the busted run to open up the game last year in Knoxville. The run, I think Jalen Wright busted one right out of the gates last year for like an 80-yard run. And they kind of shut them down after that. They went on a 31-7 run last night. Tennessee didn't score in the second half. Anything I believe in college football after working in 9 years of it, I'm like you. I was pretty confident. I actually would have been very surprised if Tennessee won. There was plenty of paths to victory. Just personally, I would have been like, it's actually one of the bigger surprises when you pull back the layers, context of, man, Georgia just is going to go 9-3 now and just lost at home to a Tennessee team they've kind of owned here recently. And if this game was in Knoxville, neutral field, I'm probably picking Tennessee in this game. Tennessee is that team on the road, man, in hostile environments against good teams. And again, it's tough to win on the road against anybody, especially against good teams. So this isn't just a shot at Josh Heupel. It's just kind of like there are no-shows at times offensively. Florida last year, Bama in the second half when they're up 13, they went scoreless. Second half in this game, Arkansas this year. You can go down the line. Dude. They struggle offensively against other good teams on the road. Like, for whatever reason, he does. And I think a lot of it's communication. But, yeah, Georgia, that was an impressive one. Chris, I'm probably not as overly impressed as – I'm not putting words in your mouth. As you sound. I still think Georgia can get God on a given day. I'm not like, oh, man, if I don't see them in the national title at this point, I'll be –
I mean, I think anybody can get God in college. But I'm just saying that if – I think just last night showed if Georgia can just not shoot themselves in the foot, they are still one of the 3 or 4 best teams.
Are you a little concerned about the receiver? I don't know if they
have.
No.
Thank you.
For a while could really.
Dave, thank you for bringing that up. That was something I totally forgot that I thought during the game. Yeah, Carson Beck needs help, man. I mean, credit to Oscar Delp and Urasek, and I mean, Lovett had a few, but God, there are so many times where you're like, guys, you got to help your quarterback. I mean, we got to catch the football. And Georgia leads the country in drops. That was something we talked about on Friday night at the home field event at Creature Conference with those guys. They lead the country in drops. It's like, at some point you got to turn a 50-50 ball into an 80-20 ball. And guys, the problem with Georgia, they're dropping the 80-20 balls. These aren't all 50-50 balls.
From
you know what I mean?
NIL staffs across the country now, we always used to talk about in college, and I think this was true before NIL, in the way the game has changed offensively from an explosive play standpoint. Receivers kind of used to just be a dime a dozen. Remember when we were in college? I mean, Cole's a little younger than us, but he was in the same age range. It's like you had one guy and you had some roll 3 to 4 guys. Like you have Julio Jones, you have Darius Hanks, Marquise.
AJ Green was in the building last night.
AJ Green, if you didn't have another big dude, now in the portal, I think teams are starting to pay big money for difference makers because it's like, as you just said, Chris, if you're, scheme be damned. If my guy can go make a play over your guy, that's what I'm going to do, dude. It was London Humphreys last night that Georgia, we've said it every week. Georgia misses Ra Thomas and Colby Young.
Hey, Dave, do you remember a guy by the name of George Pickens? Remember what he used to do?
I think the most consistent receiver under Kirby's Lad McConkey.
One catch per game for a 50-yard blast, 80-20 ball. That's what he did. You want to know who else did that in the playoff? Adonai Mitchell. That's what he did. Just one play, going to be in the back of the end zone. Yeah. So here are some thoughts I have. Let's start off with the fact that I knew it was possible. I was sitting going into this preview and I was saying, well, let's go pick Tennessee. Let's be different. Let's not all have the same picks. I'll be the one to bite the bullet. Because
you had paths to victory, though. I'm gonna give you credit, Cole. It wasn't just a shot at the wall. You had paths to victory for that.
Good Tennessee team. Very solid, still Tennessee team. I think that people are gonna walk away with. But here's the thought I had. He's got a game in him. Like Carson Beck has a game in him where he's gonna do this, right? Like we watched it before. It wasn't against top-notch competition, but he had a game in him. It's running low. Like how I talked about Texas A&M dropping a game that they probably should have won. It's the same thing with Carson Beck. There was a game that he probably was going to ball on out. And we were going to highly talk about him as now back in the running for first quarterback selected in the NFL draft. Certainly all SEC conversation. It happened against Tennessee in his own backyard. I thought the mobility was a really big factor. He wasn't afraid to step on up into the pocket and deliver strikes downfield. You saw him be able to find with Oscar Delp. I thought the first touchdown pass to Oscar Delp was one of the best throws he's had all year. Just clean, decisive, right on the money. No shot of a defensive back coming in to make a play. That is what you want to see from Carson Beck this season. And it was exactly what you want to see from a team that was down a running back because no Trevor Etienne in this game. So you had to have your quarterback step on up. The tight ends. Death taxes, a good run game, a good defense, and tight end play being used at Georgia are things that I know. It's things that we were taught. It's things that we grew up on. And you finally got the tight end play involved. You also saw the ability of this offensive line slowing down one of the best defensive fronts. I mean, honestly, when you go back and you talk about this game and tell me, Georgia's going to win the football game. Okay, cool. I believe it. How do they win? Well, they win because Carson Beck throws for over 350 yards. They get 5 touchdowns. They go on a 31-7 run after allowing 10 points to begin the game. Oh, and the offensive line, the one that just got boat raced last week by Ole Miss, doesn't allow a sack. The part that would be the most confusing to me is the very last one. You're telling me that defensive line that put pressure on Alabama, that put pressure on NC State, that put pressure on every other team that they have faced off against this year, Florida for that instance, is not going to bring down Carson Beck one time? No, they're not. Bullshit. A bull. No bull. That's the kind of performance that you want to see. Now, I have to say this, though. Because you just brought this up, Christopher. You just brought this up, Dave Shumate. Carson Beck needs help. Nico Iamaleava needs help. I am sorry. We're talking about drop balls? Really? We're going to talk about drop balls and not mention at all a damn thing about how many drop balls there were from Nico Iamaleava's passes. I mean, how many of them were right on the money? Dante Thornton, I'm done. I'm so done.
Yeah, he had that one. I was on that sideline where it just hit his hands and it just goes.
Hey, here's a stat.
He didn't even get touched.
Chris Brazzell.
Here's a stat for y'all on Cole's point here. Rusty Mansell just tweeted it out. In Tennessee's last 3 games against Georgia, they've had 31 possessions, only 4 touchdowns.
Chris Brazzell, done. Done. Just done. Squirrel White, you had a couple of good catches. Good for you. You also had a bad drop. Getting close to being done. Miles Kitselman, thank God you stepped on up inside the red zone because that was the only thing that you were good for. That was the only thing you were good for last night. How about Dylan Sampson? Congratulations. You show up once again. You find your way into the end zone. We kind of expected that. You also were effective out of the backfield. Peyton Lewis is a number 2 running back. Good game.
Dylan Sampson's a stud, by the way. Just seeing him in person work, he is a.
They did that segment on him on game day.
He's a workhorse, man.
Honestly, good game. Very good game. But my God, you have Mike Matthews, 4-star wide receiver from the state of Georgia, that is sitting on the sidelines waiting for his breakout moment.
He must have slapped one of Heupel's children.
I talked to people last recruiting cycle about who was going to be the most underrated wide receiver recruit in the country. And everyone said if it wasn't Micah Hudson at Texas Tech, it was going to be Mike Matthews. Everyone just said that this kid is special. Well, what did he do to Tennessee to make him not special in his own backyard, in his own home state, with an opportunity to beat a team that he probably grew up rooting for, now playing for the opposing sideline, and guaranteeing your spot in the college football playoff? The game plan and the inconsistencies of the offense, this has been a problem all year for Tennessee. All year, they don't play consistent offensive football, whether it be in the run game, whether it be in the pass pro, whether it be with drop balls, whether Nico overshot some players. This has been the identity of Tennessee offensive football the entire season, and it's not getting better. And the frustrating part is that they shouldn't be doing this because I would like to blame it on a young quarterback. I can't. Guy made some veteran throws last night. Guy made some throws that you would see from a third-year starter and be like, wow, it's really impressive.
Yeah, I gained to your point, Cole. I not that I didn't have respect for Nico before, but man, when you factor in what he was coming in with, we didn't even know if he was going to play. I mean, dude, he got
drilled.
He went through a war last night. I can't believe he made it to the end of the game. I mean, I looked at him in the game and like his jersey was green from just, I mean, dude, he was hitting the deck. It felt like every other play. He was getting ragdolled, it felt like, by the end of the game. I give him a lot of credit for making it to the end of the game. Honestly.
You know the meme of the Vietnam War guy that's sitting there like freaking losing his mind because he's having flashbacks? That's Nico at this point, every single drive. And it's so much more than that. And that's the frustrating part. I'm not taking anything away from Georgia. I'm not. And by the way, I'm going to make this abundantly clear to all volunteer country. I agree with you on several of those plays. Ref officiating, atrocious. How dare the Zebras try to control the game? How dare they find a way?
I wonder what Heupel and they aren't too fond of each other either. But it'd be interesting to see what they both whispered to each other. Because I saw y'all see Kirby get pissed off when he called the timeout at the end.
Yeah. I did not. Oh, I was in state.
Yeah.
I didn't see
No.
that.
How dare they? How dare the Zebras try to control the game? I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear that.
Why you lost.
I don't want to hear that's why you lost.
I'll say this too. Heupel kind of acted immature in the post-game. Every time they asked, he turned the mic towards them to make you tell me. It's kind of like, it's like you said, Chris and Cole.
I didn't see that. That's crazy.
Him in the post-game, he's sitting there. They'll ask him a question about the refs, and like he'll take the microphone and turn it towards the reporter. Say that again. What about the face mask?
The way you're describing it, it sounds very funny.
But like, it's so
funny. He's pissed though.
Like, I'm sorry. Yeah, several of those calls, like the one, the Dylan Bell one. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. That one to me was a fumble. I know that it wasn't, but he made a football move. The pass.
They missed the face mask. Cole, you would agree it wasn't a face mask.
There was no way that was a face mask. I'm sorry. There was no way that was a face mask. The Oscar Delp drop that was a football move. They called it incompletion. It looked like a fumble to me. He made a football move. Like not.
Y'all think Heupel not going for it when he got the ball to open the half when they punted on Georgia's 36 was a little like, man, dude, you're gonna have to make a play here that you maybe traditionally don't want to go for it in this type of situation. Like, Cole, I think because we all know, like, you're on the road in the SEC, some calls are not going to go your way. Every fan base, all 16 of them in our league, can probably give a great example of how their team's gotten screwed on the road by the refs before. We all can go there. But my point, if I'm Heupel in the second half, these guys have had my number. We got to do something risky. And it's, 4th and 3 from like their own 36, and this dude's just taking delay of game penalties, go punt him. Like,
I was so no. And again, I'm not gonna sit here and act like it's just penalties. Like, I'm not just gonna sit here and act like it's just penalties against Georgia. I'm not. Yeah, did it bode well in favor of Georgia? 31-7 after a 10-0 lead. That's all I'm going to say. 31-7. Conservative play calling, the inability to get anything to start moving. The inconsistencies of your wide receivers, the inconsistencies of your offensive line, the inability to pressure Carson Beck into making mistakes, your secondary allowing too many explosive plays downfield to wide receivers that are not better than your wide receivers. They're all things that factored in. They all are things that factored in. Yes, Georgia woke up last night and said, this is the true version of us. And I'm sorry, Dave, the version of Georgia that played last night, that is one that is going to be almost impossible to beat.
But do we think we get that for 5 straight games?
That's the thing. Yeah. That's the thing. Are we going to get that? Probably not.
I say we can. I'm just saying that it's a little hesitant.
But that's the Georgia team that you know for a fact. No questions asked whatsoever. They are almost impossible to beat. But also, I'm not going to sit here and act like Tennessee did not have its moments to where they immediately said, you know what, we're done. We're done. We're done. 31-7. That's all I'm going to say. 31-7 was the final score. Stop using refs as excuses. Stop using people saying that the war was out to get you. Stop sitting there. And now we have to have a serious conversation when it comes to Tennessee. Are they going to be the first team out? Because of whether or not we agree that head-to-head should matter, you're not leaving out Alabama. You're not leaving out Georgia. You're not leaving out Ole Miss. You're not leaving out an 11-1
It's
Texas.
Tennessee. It's Tennessee, Texas. In my opinion.
Tennessee, I think, is the team that, and a lot can change. I mean, we just saw that this weekend in college football, but they're the team I think on the path to get screwed. I really do. And if
here's the thing: head-to-heads are going to matter. Strength of record's going to matter. The way you play down the finish line is also going to matter. How you look, that eye test that people say, I'm so sick of the eye test. I'm so sick of the eye test. Well, the eye test told me last night that Tennessee's not a top 12 team. That's what the eye test told me last night. The way they played.
And to your point, Cole, I mean, I said going in, I asked the question, who on Georgia's offense scares you right now? I mean, besides Dylan Sampson, I could say the same thing about Tennessee. Because like you said, they don't have a guy on the outside. I mean, Squirrel White made a couple nice catches, but
Squirrel's inconsistent. He's a solid third.
They don't have a guy that when you line up, you're like, if we take Sampson away, well, we got to be careful of this guy on the outside. They don't have that guy.
I mean, both these teams don't have some phenomenal. I mean,
you got to think, guys. Tennessee is going to drop a bag on a receiver this offseason. I mean, you got to go get a guy for Nico, man. If you want Nico to ever live up to the hype and the expectations you set out, he's got to have some.
Well, that's the thing is that you paid him so much to be the dude. It's the SEC. Wake up and smell the coffee, guys. It's not going to be just you having a great quarterback. You have to have help. Everyone has a great quarterback in the conference. Everyone has playmakers in the conference. You can't just say, but we paid him a lot of money. So Nico's got to be
Georgia and Tennessee might be fighting for the same guys at this rate.
They should.
Tennessee kind of builds their receiving groups from talking. They kind of like to build it like a basketball roster. They went some size all the way down 5 through the 1 spot to go 1 being the point guard, 5 being the center. They may go away from that because I think they are starting to get a little upset. Like the smaller, undersized receivers can't play that point spot for them at times where you got to go. I mean, hell, they played one of the, maybe not this year, but traditionally it's one of the best perimeter block destruction teams defensively in the past 8 years since Kirby Smart's been there from destroying. Guys like Squirrel White can't keep up, and we all know the screen game for Tennessee on the perimeter is an extension of their run game. That is a run, if you ask them, would be like, this is a safe throw. They have to have that kind of stuff going for them to be consistent. Kirby Smart, Glenn Shumate, and them they do a really good job of stopping Josh Heupel and them from. I mean, they've done it since Heupel has been in Knoxville. I think Tennessee's got to change a little bit of how they go about evaluating receivers. You can't keep taking undersized guys like Squirrel White.
You say they want to build a basketball roster. Here's what I want to say: the first guy that walks in and says, "I'm him. Give me the damn ball." That's who I'm going to bring in. I'm going to bring in that guy. I want that dude on my team that says, "Hey, it's fourth quarter. I got this." I want that dude on my team for Nico iamaleava because I'm so sick of this.
McCoy would be a little better this year. He's been banged up, but
I am sick of this. I am sick of the drops. I am sick of the inconsistencies. And what's really frustrating, we've talked about this so many times on the show. How many good defenses are being wasted this year because of poor execution on offense? There's another one. There's another one that probably could get a couple of wins in the playoff that's not going to go because their offense can't be consistent. Oh, and you owe Dylan Sampson an apology. If you keep him out of the playoff, Josh Heupel, you owe him an apology because he's going to be coming close to breaking the SEC record for the most rushing touchdowns. You owe him an apology. That's a shame that we're not probably going to see him.
Guys, we're going to move on into the game. Last thing I want to say, shout out to all the great Dawgs and Vols that showed us love yesterday. Special shout out to my buddy John and the Morris Hall tailgate and Electric Factory.
I mean, Chris, we got to give you some credit for Carson Beck playing well the other night too, dude. You had an interaction with his mother.
Yeah.
Game, it transitioned to him. So through like a transitive property,
the SEC
you allowed Carson Beck to go play his best game of the season. Good job.
The SEC Unfiltered Tour works in magical ways. No, seriously, it was a great time, man. Athens was awesome. I'll stand behind this. I'll stand on this business. Best college town in the country. Incredible place. It was a place I was looking forward to getting all year. And the Dawgs and the Vols and all the folks we interacted with yesterday showing all the love.
Okay, so you're saying best college town, not
best college town.
Okay, but not best college football stadium, but best college
town. No, that's not what best college town.
Okay.
I'm meaning what I say. Best, and I don't think that's even a hot take.
The
people of Twitter disagreed.
It's not a hot take. It is. I'm an Alabama grad. You're an Alabama grad, Dave. It's a great college town. It is. I'm not gonna sit
Tuscaloosa. Listen, we could go on a whole thing about this. When I say it, it's not like I'm knocking any other place.
Yeah.
But Athens is a great college town, objectively. Like when just all of it encompassing together. I'm not saying Sanford's the nicest stadium.
In a 2 square mile or something.
Yeah, the city of Athens is awesome. Like
it's
the bar scene's awesome. The way it just kind of like feeds into the university is awesome. Like it's like all integrated together. Then boom, Sanford Stadium just hits you out at like it's awesome. Athens is just great.
No, I mean I think I love Tuscaloosa, but
I love Tuscaloosa
right.
too.
But
Athens best college town.
But the 2 towns that I like more than Tuscaloosa is Athens and Knoxville. Sorry.
And Knoxville's great too, because people were like, "What about Knoxville?" It's great.
Yeah, Knoxville's not. I'm sorry, I agree with you. It's best college town. Knoxville's number 2. I agree with that. That's fine.
Anyways, guys, let's go to maybe the most thrilling game of the weekend.
One of the best.
South Carolina finally snaps the streak against Eli Drinkwitz and the Missouri Tigers. And guys, I'll tell you this. If and when the Gamecocks were going to snap the streak, I expected it to be wacky. I expected it to be just because when you got like that monkey on your back and you're trying to get like a lot of times it's not easy and you've got to overcome some adversity and you just you got to find a way to get over the hump. It's not going to be easy.
Would any of y'all change y'all's pick if y'all knew Brady Cook was playing?
No.
No, I wouldn't.
But see, like that's why I picked South Carolina to win. I didn't touch the spread in this game.
I didn't either, dude.
Because
I was literally when I was putting my bets in yesterday morning, CP. Literally, I saw it was the Pete Thamel thing we were tweeting about. And our group came out. Brady Cook started. I was about to put 13.5. I was like,
nope.
You know what? Now something tells me to stay away.
I think too. Listen, I've called Missouri a fraud. Like, they're still not like a terrible football team. Like,
that was their best game of the year.
Players. Yeah, they've got good players. So you knew they had personnel, and I had just seen it before with Drinkwitz against South Carolina. You're like, let me just see it. Okay, so went the over. We cashed on that. But guys, when you're hot, you're hot. And South Carolina's the hottest team in the country. And so when you're hot, you find ways to win. And it looks like Mizzou, they're about to make it 6 in a row. Eli Drinkwitz is going to dance on your grave. And Dave, we talked about it. You know it would have happened, right?
Yeah. Again,
I'm
actually surprised it wasn't worse post game between one of them. I thought Beamer would more shove it in his face a little bit. He didn't.
Yeah. Give South Carolina, man, so much credit. You go down the field. Rocket Sanders continues to be worth every single penny and then some that you paid him over the offseason. He's back to 2022 form that he was in Arkansas. And guys, it is a beautiful thing when you see a young player. I've mentioned this. They all have that light bulb moment where it clicks and you just start to come into your own. And it's, again, we all have that, whether it's in business, it's in sales, it's in podcasting, it's whatever it is. Whether it's rep 1 or 100 or 1,000 or 10,000, we have that rep where it's like, ooh, that just made sense. The game starts to slow down. You hear that? We've reached that point for LaNorris Sellers, guys.
Yeah.
21 to 30, 21 to 30, 353, 5 touchdowns. He had the 1 pick, but I mean, that kid's, and it's scary because guys, to take it back, I see shades of Connor Shaw and maybe better. Maybe I think he's a better. I think he's a better passer. Like, but I'm saying like I saw him on like a 3rd and 7, guys, or whatever it was. Scramble, get the first down, and keep the drive alive. I was like, I've seen that before, guys.
It's that 3rd down late in the game.
I've seen.
Cole said it on the reaction show yesterday. I think he's the most improved player from week 1 through week 12 in the conference.
And I tell you this. Listen. Give Dowell Loggins a lot of credit. I can't believe I'm saying that, but give Dowell Loggins a lot of credit.
This is coming from somebody. I still don't think it's a perfect fit, Dowell Loggins, and I think they both would probably admit that privately. But they've meshed something together where it's like they offensively, they know they're starting to be like, all right, our 2 best players by far are LaNorris Sellers and Rocket Sanders. We have to just keep the rock in their hands. And you know what? If we want to go off some play action, we'll hit Josh Simon. They're comfortable.
Hey, by the way, side note. How about Nick Harbor?
Yeah.
I mean, bring him up in a minute. Fans have been waiting. And I mean, I think they just saw Dave early on. They can't keep up with him. Like just go.
But I also say, and this is where South Carolina fans disagree with me, I think LaNorris Sellers makes that wide receiver group a lot better.
Oh, he does.
Isn't that guys are going to win one on, like we're talking about, the true number ones, the AJ Green, Tulio Jones,
Yeah.
the Devontae Smith, guys we've seen that are big.
Hey, there's going to be a lot of SEC teams fighting for wide receiver talent this offseason.
And Harbor is coming to himself. I think he's a guy that could be that.
They need him to be that guy.
Correct. But LaNorris Sellers' ability to extend plays and make people miss sacks and roll out, that's when I don't think your casual fan understands. That's when secondaries start to come up and come try to make a tackle on LaNorris Sellers and leaves these wide receivers wide open. So again, I think this is a LaNorris Sellers thing. I do agree. Nick Harbor has the ability to be a wide receiver one for them. If he continues to develop, get that track and field mindset out, son. And again, I've talked to people who've worked there, still work there now. You say they were a little underwhelmed, I think, in fall camp, but you could not take a kid who's 6'4", 230 with an Olympic speed. You'll miss on, again, as we always used to say in college football, I'm not going to take the undersized. You can give me crap if I take an undersized kid and we miss. No one's going to blame you for missing on size and speed. Even if it don't work out, it's like, well, I test drive that. And then to the point, too, South Carolina's defense just continues to just make plays. Like you said, Chris, it's just kind of a team of destiny from a standpoint. I don't think they get in at 9-3. Some people may disagree with me from a college football playoff standpoint. I don't think they get in. But again, this is I think Shane Beamer's right there underneath Clark Lee for Coach of the Year. I don't think I can give it to Shane Beamer because I do think in this time going to a bowl game at Vanderbilt should automatically give you that. So it's not really any other season. Shane Beamer probably wins SEC Coach of the Year.
If they go to the playoffs somewhere, I mean,
I was going to say, not to cut you off, Dave, but like, I'll tell you this from the South Carolina perspective: remove the playoff stuff. Finally beating Mizzou is a really big deal, man. Because here's the thing: if you're gonna take the next step, or even have the opportunity to take the next step as a program in South Carolina. People worry so much about, this is back when it was the East, beating Georgia, Tennessee, Florida. I used to always say, you need to beat Kentucky every year.
I'll ask you.
You need to beat Vandy.
You
need Mizzou's a team. You need to beat, 6 or 7 times every decade. You cannot be losing to them. So now it's like to beat this Missouri team and to kind of feel like we could debate this. You've leapfrogged them though. Like, all right, that's another notch we've moved up in this SEC pecking order. It's like, the top isn't as far as it once looked like it was. Just from that perspective, forget the playoff. Huge to get that win.
I'm asking both y'all this, and we'll let Cole give it. Would y'all consider that a bad loss yesterday for Shane Beamer if you lose to Missouri at home in that situation?
No.
It would be massively disappointing. It would have been massively disappointing.
Disappointing, but not bad.
No, but that would have been a limited Missouri.
I'll tell you this, Cole. Not bad from the standpoint of like, oh my God, it's so we lost to Old Dominion. You would have just looked at it as it would have been demoralizing. Like I think with the momentum you built up to sit there and be like, man, like we just can't beat this guy. Because at some point you start questioning, like, is it even possible? It wouldn't have been bad from like an embarrassing, like if you'd have lost to Old Dominion or something like that, but it would have been demoralizing. But give South Carolina, man, to have the gall to go down the field there late and win it speaks a lot to Beamer's team. Culture they've built, everything.
What really speaks to this team, this is the first time this year the offense won the football game. It wasn't the defense. I think a lot of people have paid attention to what Dylan Stewart, Kyle Kennard, Taka Hemingway, Nicky Manwari, Jalen Kilgore, what they have been for this unit, and how Clayton White has gotten this team prepared mentally to step up, deliver violence, and keep them in close games. Yesterday was a moment where you said, hey, LaNorris Sellers, Rocket Sanders, you need to win this game. You need to win this game. And it's not just you two. Mazio Bennett, you got to come up with a big-time catch. Nick Harbor, you got to come up with a big-time catch. Jared Brown, you got to come up with a big-time catch. Del Campbell, 4 catches going into this game. Guess what? He was the biggest catch of his career. And he probably set up South Carolina to win a football game and still somewhat stay alive for a college football playoff hunt. He did. Everyone on offense stepped up. The offensive line did a great job protecting LaNorris Sellers. When LaNorris Sellers was flustered, you saw him move outside the pocket. Even though he looked like he was under duress, he stayed confident. He stayed cool. He stayed in his element. That was a fine win. More importantly, that was a gritty win, and it showed you what truly is the vision of South Carolina at its peak. But the other part that I want to throw out here that's really important, guys, I am the only person on this platform that said Mizzou was actually a good 7-2 team. I was the only person. That team in a loss yesterday.
I was pretty hard on Mizzou, Cole.
To be fair, though, Cole,
awesome.
you take your victory. I mean, dude, what everyone said going into that is definitely fair. They have not looked good until that game.
But they look awesome.
That's the problem with Mizzou is every opportunity they've had to show how good they are, they've gotten.
Dude, that was their best game in a loss. Guys, let that sink in. That was their best game in a loss.
The offensive line, you telling me going into this matchup, hey, Kyle Kennard, Dylan Sturt are going to combine for 1 sack. This defensive front, this defensive front is going to get 2 sacks.
Yeah,
by the way, 5 tackles for losses. This defensive line is going to do that. Nate Noel is going to run rampant.
But guys, we got to stop going off predicting. It's week to week, guys. Did anybody think Tennessee wouldn't get any sacks against Georgia? That's what I'm saying. Like, we can't make these narratives up. Oh, I was the only one who believed in Missouri. It's like, dude, there was plenty to give.
I can 100% make that narrative. I'm going to run with that narrative.
I'll give Cole credit. He didn't just mail it in on Mizzou like I did.
I wasn't. Mizzou's a playoff team.
They're not. And if you told me right now, 9-3 Mizzou, 9-3 South Carolina, which one wins a playoff game? It's South Carolina.
Well, we just saw it 12 hours ago. Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. It's easily no. But I'm saying like if you tell me at its peak,
I think it's fair to say Missouri isn't like an SEC contender from a championship standpoint. That's where I am.
No, they're not.
Now you were saying that, but
I think honestly, to take it down this route, I'm not surprised saying that because it even felt like over the summer. We were more so like, yeah, they're in the playoff, but it was because of their schedule. Like it was, you never led with the football reasons why, you led with the schedule, and I think that's just kind of exposing itself. Like they're a good team, not a playoff team. That's okay.
What was their best game? What was their best game besides yesterday? And that let's let that sink in, guys.
It's probably the Auburn game. It's probably the Auburn game where they came back.
Yeah,
because their defense stepped up.
Auburn.
There's not a lot to choose.
It's that or Boston College.
So that's what I'm saying. I don't know where you would have thought they were an SEC title contender.
It's not even an SEC title contender. It's more so the fact that that's a team like, okay. So do you remember last week when we saw Vanderbilt be left out of the top 25? It's like, I'm sorry. I still would not want to play 24 other teams more than Vanderbilt. I wouldn't. I don't care what their record says. A team like Mizzou should not be penalized that much in the college football playoff rankings for a close loss on the road in an environment like Williams-Brice Stadium, because of that team woke up and it looked like the version with the 2-loss record. That's all I'm saying, is that there are some games where you feel like that tennis, like that Mizzou benefited from having an easy schedule, which allowed them to be coming into this matchup at 7-2. But also that was a team that we saw yesterday that when you say 7-3, I understand what you mean 7-3. Really, really good overall performance. Offensive line looked great. Brady Cook looked great. Theo Wees looked great. Luther Burden with the catch of the day. I mean, honestly, we have got to start giving a lot of credit what he has done, because if we have not seen number 3 as much this year, but when he is on, brother, he is on. What a snag. What a touchdown. 4th and 5. Great play calling from Kirby Moore in that moment. Defensively, Corey Batoon has done a good job replacing Blake Baker. I've said it all year. This defense has kept them in games. That's all I'm saying by it, is that this is a pesky team that's going to probably finish 9-3. I know we got to talk about the Arkansas-Mizzou matchup because that's going to be really, really
They lose that game. Is this an underachieving year for the Mizzou?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I think anything, even 9-3 is disappointing. I think 9-3 is disappointing. Anything less than 9-3. I mean, they were calling it over the summer, guys. We were previewing it. I had a Mizzou guy on, Gabe DeArmond, Power Mizzou, great guy. I mean, he mentioned anything less than 9-3 would be a disaster. That's how they viewed it.
You got to factor in the quarterback being out a little bit in the season.
You do.
Here's the thing: 9-3 is a bad overall look this year because of what you brought in the portal. But more importantly, in the bigger games that you need to at least show up. You looked awful against Texas A&M. You looked awful against Alabama. And you finally had a really good game in a loss against South Carolina.
Here too, Cole. They looked awful against Auburn until Brady Cook came back in with the Adam Sandler longest yard return.
He was drugged up on Percocet and ambition. That was it. Yeah. I mean, that's what he had.
But I would say 9-3 for Mizzou this year is like if Ole Miss would have gone 9-3, it's like, yeah, I mean, you're really disappointed because you felt like you had a window to go to the play. But I mean, bro,
it's 9-3.
9-3 is still one of your best seasons probably in school history.
Think about this. I know bowl games don't matter, guys, but at schools like Missouri,
if you can win double-digit games
back-to-back years.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, before we move on to the next game, I need to talk to South Carolina people. Come here. Let's have a chit chat. Okay? Stop saying playoff.
Cole's campaign.
Stop saying playoff. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it from you. I don't want to hear anything from you. I don't want to hear how this could happen. This could happen. This could happen. Here's what I want to hear. We're going to finish 9-3. We're going to finish 9-3. Because the problem is when you start thinking of playoff and all these scenarios on how you could get in, the way that you could get in, what needs to happen for you, you lose sight of the competition. LSU lost sight of the competition yesterday. They could have gotten in at 9-3.
The good news, Cole, I mean, they got Wofford next week. They're going to beat the Terriers like a
But
drum.
what I'm saying
and you're not looking past Clemson. I promise you.
Don't look past Clemson.
What are they looking past?
Cole, I promise you, ain't nobody looking past Clemson. I promise you.
On the counter, what are they looking past? They don't have a game.
I said on 9-3. That's all I'm saying. I said on 9-3. I don't want to hear about playoffs. I want to hear about you going 9-3 because the other part that's really important here, 9-3 is a damn good year out in Columbia, South Carolina.
To your point, Cole, it shouldn't be dampened if you don't get like 9.
When
your Vegas win total was 5.5, 6, and everybody was expecting to go 6. 9-3 is a great year in your.
On top of that, you heard Shane Beamer. You heard him say in Dallas, go ahead and post at 13. Go ahead and post at 12. We're okay with that. We have internal belief. You'll close out the year with 4 ranked wins. You're a play away and a bad officiating. I'll say it. I'll be alone on this one against LSU from having 2 losses. On top of that, you played extremely well against an Alabama squad that is going to go to the college football playoff, and you looked awful in one game that you lost, the Ole Miss game. The win against Old Dominion, it is what it is at this point. And so far out of the rearview mirror, who cares? Just worry about 9-3. Worry about what you've done, how you continue to build, and how you make sure that this roster stays together next year as much as possible. That way you continue the success to be in the conversation for a college football playoff. And there is no doubt. You're a 10-2, you're an 11-1, you're in the hunt for Atlanta to go to the college football playoff for an SEC championship. But worry about 9-3. And remember, to all that is holy, all that is cocky, 9-3 is a good year. It is a very good year. In fact, it is an incredible year. And you got the culture, and you got the coach, and you got the atmosphere, and you got the personality, and you have the ability to make something special moving forward. Don't just say, well, we missed out on the playoffs because of a bad pick 6 that was called back. Stop. 9-3 is a good year. Think about 9-3. Do not get complacent down the stretch. You got 2 more games. Do not get complacent.
Cole, to give you some perspective before we move off really quickly, because we want to get to these other 2 games, I got something, Cole, that'll make you change your mind from it being a good year to a great year, okay? South Carolina football in over 100 years of its history has won 9 or more games in a season 7 times. 7. Okay? Yeah. So anybody like 9-3, when you think of it from that perspective, 9-3 is a great year. Nothing to turn the nose up at. And who knows? You go 9-3. I mean, let the chips fall where they may. This year, college ball is wacky. I don't think a 9-3 team is getting in either.
What's the best season Lou Holtz had at South Carolina? Was it 6-6, 7 wins?
No, he won the Outback Bowl back-to-back. He got to
my quarterback counselor at the Manning football academy.
Phil Petty, Ryan Brewer.
The guy didn't use the laces on the ball.
Well, no, that was Dondrell Pinkins. That was after him. That was the 03 team that went like 5-7.
He was my camp counselor at the Manning Academy, baby. Him and David Green.
Yeah, but I'm just saying it hadn't happened a lot. I mean, like going 9-3 or better, it's not something to this happens all the time. No, it doesn't. So
no. How many times did Spurrier get to 9-3?
So they won 10 games. Yeah, they won 10 games in 2010, and then 11, 12, 13 was the 3 straight 11-win years.
Okay, that's right. Well, here's the good news. You got a coach that you can build around. And also
right.
The thing that I think is really important here is that when Frank was at Blacksburg, he could have easily left at any moment and gone to a bigger program because of the way that he was able to get that team to play at a certain advantage, but he turned Virginia Tech into what it is. Shane can do that at South Carolina. He can turn it into something just like his dad turned it in Blacksburg, Virginia.
Oh, I'm not ready to call it Shane Beamer, Frank Beamer, a Hall of Famer yet.
I think he can be their Frank Beamer.
He can be their Frank Beamer is what I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
Long term, solid to
same
more
success,
than that.
I think the consistent 10-win seasons.
I think it's a different challenge because you're in the SEC and we know how hard it is to win in the SEC. And
that's what I'm saying.
But no, listen, and again, we could go be long-winded on this, but I've always said, what are realistic expectations for Shane Beamer at South Carolina and what would be great for that program? Over the course of a decade, I think if he can average 8 wins per year, guys, he's the greatest coach in school history if he does that. It's like South Carolina, even with Spurrier, they've never had that kind of level of consistency that I would be talking about. It means some years, but you're probably never missing a bowl game, ever rarely. You're having some 9 and 10 win seasons. God knows, maybe 11 mixed in, playoff with the 12 team. Going to go to 14, but that level of consistency, like that's how you build a foundation, build tradition, and then you're able, guys, because it's a lot easier to go from, hey man, we're right there, 8-4, 9-3 every year. We just need a couple more pieces. Like we're knocking on the door of being maybe not an elite, but challenging those. When you're going 5-7 and 6-6 every year, you feel like you're light years away. Like I think Beamer can consistently.
Groundhog Day. It's the same thing.
I think Beamer can consistently get them. I've always said it since he got the job, to averaging right at about 8 wins per year over the course, which people might turn their nose at. But again, guys, when you think about it in perspective of South Carolina football has won 8 or more games in a season 15 times in their history. Guys, 8-4 is a great year in college. Like if you got to a place where 8 wins felt like the floor, holy shit, you'd be in a great position as a program.
Chris, let me ask you. You go to the playoffs every 6 years. Every 6 years.
That's great.
That's great. 6 years. That's a dream. I mean, hell, I was talking about it on the show last night.
And by the way, South Carolina's not the only program that'd be a dream for. You know, there's other ones in the SEC that same convo for Arkansas, same convo for Mississippi State, same convo for arguably Mizzou. Ole Miss traditionally. I mean, so there's other programs where I may sound like I'm being harsh on them, but there's others that bro, you tell Arkansas they're averaging 8 wins a year. I mean, and by the way, where do I sign? Where do I sign?
By the way, averaging means averaging. It doesn't mean that you can't.
So some years you may win more, some years you might win 1 or 2 less. But you're sitting at that line of this is the kind of program we are, which is again, that's a pretty good spot to be as a program. It's not a bad spot at all. Not everybody can be Georgia. Not everybody can be Bama. That's a pretty good spot.
Like you tell fans all the time, guys, somebody's got to finish. It's like in my basketball power ranking. Somebody's got to finish 10th, guys. There's too many good teams in the league.
Yeah, no. You can't always be Alabama. Can't always be Georgia. But we can judge Brian Kelly in year 3, so let's talk about it.
Yeah, let's talk about that one. LSU, Florida. Gators get the 27-16 win. I'm kind of mad at myself, guys, because I picked this upset over the summer. None of us obviously were brave enough to go with the Gators. Hindsight's 20/20. A lot of different directions we can go here, guys. The Billy Napier 2025. Does anybody look smarter than Scott Strickland right now? I give him a lot of credit. I mean, vote of confidence. He's back in 2025. We thought it was crazy. I mean, Billy Napier cashed in. Billy Napier cashed in. So
here's the deal. It's smart if it ends up paying out. If it ends up panning out.
Yeah, super short term. It looks like, damn, you knew something.
But for this moment.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's in the moment.
Absolutely. It looks like the smartest man alive.
Yeah. So
no, I agree with Cole. That if it turns out, it looks like it. But I mean, you are just coming off a total beat down in Austin the week before. Again, that was with your third string Aiden Morris. I'm
going to continue to say, the Harvard quarterback out there.
To Yale, baby. Hey,
Yale quarterback.
Yeah, it's a Bulldog, not a Crimson. No, but I mean, I'm with you, Chris. Traditionally, this is where LSU comes in as just a total sleeper game the week after Alabama. It's usually Arkansas, traditionally a fucking meager.
Well, and we asked the question, Dave, what do they have to play for? I
guess their SEC title race wasn't totally
what did they have to play for?
I know it's a bad argument. I'm just saying, it was
this is where, if I was an LSU fan,
did you say, Dave, Bama beat you twice here? If you're did Bama beat you twice?
Yeah, I mean, let me give Florida their flowers when we get into LSU. I mean, again, like you said, Chris, I think DJ Lagway going out there in the run game.
Jaden Ball,
phenomenal job getting it going. I mean, from a defensive perspective, 7 sacks, multiple tackles for a loss. Austin Armstrong.
7 sacks Roberts against that LSU offensive line.
Who wasn't giving up any.
That blows my mind when you say
that. And then again, LSU.
But that defensive line is the other part.
You got to start having a conversation. I think the struggles of LSU right now, it's a mix of the wide receivers, and I think it's a mix of Garrett Nussmeier just not being able to see the field right now. Again, you got some of these receivers, I think, running some wrong routes, can't get separation. I think Garrett Nussmeier's just missing people. It looks like a deer in headlights at times from that standpoint. But you give Florida credit being at home. Like I mentioned, the two co-coordinators throwing a lot of looks at him to totally disguise stuff and confuse them. I mean, this is a game you were thinking, what was Florida? Y'all think they were maybe holding out a little bit last week? Just kind of being like, you know what, it's going to be really tough for us to go win. Again, I'm not saying this happens. I'm just saying I think it happens more so than people want to probably accept that. Hey, I'm not saying this, Florida fans, that your staff didn't prepare or didn't go give a crap last week in Austin. But I think there was probably like when you were evaluating it and weighing the pros and cons, it's kind of like, let's don't rush DJ back. We got a real good shot to go get that big signature win at the end of the year. Again, this would be a very private conversation.
To your point, Dave, they may have thought like, we're not going to beat Texas with
we get LSU
DJ Lagway playing. So yeah, and I mean, to your point, did they hold back? How much did they have to hold back? Because Aiden Warner just
I mean,
you know what I mean? Like, how much did they really throw at that kid?
Your offensive game plan's limited with any. This isn't a Florida thing. With any third string quarterback, you can only do so much. So that kind of made me think it was a little chestnut checkers move there a little bit. Like, you know what? We're probably not going to give him. I know DJ Lagway would love to go play in his former state, in the state of Texas, but I think the stars aligned for him yesterday. Like you said, Chris, big home win. You're right. For this Sunday afternoon on November 17th, Scott Strickland looks like he made a good move, but I am with Cole. If it works out long-term, we'll look on this. Right. Again, just a short-term win, but nonetheless, massive win for Billy Napier.
Let me ask you, Cole, before we get to you, and you can start with this. You can lead with this answer, Cole.
Sure.
After this game, do you lead? And I don't want to like make too much of it, but it's kind of what we do here at times. Do you feel better about the trajectory of Florida leaving this game, or worse about the trajectory of LSU leaving this game? Like, not beyond 2024.
Better about the trajectory of Florida. That personally.
Okay.
Personally. Dave, answer, because then I'm going to go to mine, and then I'll go to my spiel about why I'm pissed off at LSU. Beyond belief.
No, you're good. I'm done. You go.
Okay, so the reason I feel better is because, number one, all of your money, your current allocations in NIL, the revenue share, is in the younger players. It's in your underclassmen. It's in guys like Baugh. It's in guys like Mizell. It's in guys like Lagway. So they're only going to get better. That's your foundation. You watch as the foundation delivered yesterday. The second part is that they're going to have some money now that was going to be allocated towards a buyout that will go towards the transfer portal to fix some problems. They will continue, I think, to still be aggressive, and they're going to open up the wallets, and they're going to say, hey, Billy, now you got a signature win. Now we're going to be aggressive. Now we know that we can potentially win with a lot of this core foundation. Go out and add what you have to. And I think number three, the other part that's really important is there's going to be some decisions made this offseason that still are going to benefit the Gators to where they will probably be in that conversation if things go according to plan. You see the development of DJ Lagway. You see the defense get a lot better. Again, Austin Armstrong and Ron Roberts, I actually think it's a really good fit. I just feel like that they need to add somebody else on offense right now as a play caller. But regardless, I think that 8-4, 9-3, depending on who they bring in, is not too far-fetched because of look at some of the teams that are going to be playing next year. What is Texas A&M going to be? What is Mississippi State going to be? What is Ole Miss going to be? What is LSU going to be? There's a lot of matchups to where you can say it could potentially be a toss-up at the end of the day and you get a win. So I feel better about the trajectory of Florida in that sense. I don't doubt LSU. But with that being said, let's go and check the tape. What was the number one thing we were told when Brian Kelly arrived from South Bend, Indiana? Don't judge me in year one. Don't judge me in year two. Judge me in my fake Cajun accent with my family in year three. Okay, so let's go judge you in year three, BK. Number one, you have a loss, a disgusting loss to USC on a neutral site field where your offense did shit in the second half. You have another loss to a Texas A&M squad that decided to put in the mobile quarterback and beat you to oblivion when they did. You had a bye week to prepare for another mobile quarterback after having basically the Kirkland brand version of Jalen Milroe, who has a better arm. You did nothing to be able to stop that. Your offense couldn't do shit. And then you go travel to the swamp with a team that has nothing left to play for other than simply bowl eligibility because the coach is coming back next year. They're not firing anybody right now, and they didn't know if the quarterback was going to be at full capacity. Just remember 2 weeks ago, he was carted off after what we thought was a hamstring tear, and he wasn't going to be out. He was going to be out for the rest of the year. And the team that had the number next to their name looked like the one that probably has some question marks about the rest of its roster. They were poorly coached. They were poorly executed. How many times the defense just looked out of sync was pathetic. Offensively, they had no direction. Once again, couldn't run the football. Once again, just couldn't run the football. Offensive line that I thought was going to be the backbone of this team all year sucked. 7 sacks allowed in this game. Multiple turnovers. Oh, and on top of all that, you heard weeks after on the 76-yard touchdown, on the 72-yard touchdown run by Jaden Bob. Oh, yeah, half us went left, half us went right. So you just didn't care. So you just didn't care. Like, you just didn't even, you clocked out last week, said, all right, it was Bama. Done deal. That's a bad look. Oh, you know what was my favorite part of all this? How Brian Kelly yelled at a kid and then the kid yelled back at him. How another kid yelled right back at him. So he's already lost the locker room. So we want to talk about next week. What happens with Vanderbilt? I'm picking Vanderbilt right now. Why not? Why not?
Why not? I mean, LSU legitimately has nothing to play for now.
Yeah. Why not? Oh, by the way, Dave's talking about potentially what if they go 7-5? What if they go 6-6? I mean, I'm sorry. I mean,
no, I even thought going into this week they were closer to 7-5 than 10-2.
I mean, I'm sorry.
I'll give Dave a lot of credit, Dave. You called it. I feel like more so, especially than I did. I don't know about
100% Dave.
Cole, but Dave from the jump has been like this since the summer. This is an 8-4 kind of team. I'm not hot, so I give you credit, Dave. You kind of. I don't know if you saw it happening this way, but you saw this coming.
Their last few weeks, for whatever reason, defensively, they've just been all over the place with Blake Baker. But their personnel is as bad as you can. I mean, guys, we all remember growing up.
It's caught up to them.
They have dudes on defense. Yeah. They don't have a dude.
No,
it's caught up to them. They've got a real personnel problem.
It's Brian Kelly's first year. Almost he set it up where he talks about third year, judge him on his third year from his past at Notre Dame and Cincinnati. But the way he got in there, I think I've said this on the show a million times. I think he didn't understand the politics in that state from a high school coach's standpoint, because you're the only school in the state, as we all know, that competes at that level. Tulane, phenomenal group of 5 team, by the way. But I think he didn't understand the politics of it and leaned on a guy who's still currently on the coaching staff, to make all personnel decisions for him. And it's like, BK, you got to be a little bit more involved, bro. Like, you got to understand the evaluation, why this is important. That's why they've missed on so many portal kids, high school kids so far. So it made year 3 look like a rebuild for them. I think Austin Thomas being there now, who's built this Ole Miss roster, again, he got there in the summer when the roster was already set. So I think that will help.
It's not going to hurt them. They're going to be in the conversation once.
I mean, Greg Brim said Whit Weeks isn't a dude. I mean, no, he's not a Deion Jones like dude we're seeing at the linebacker spot that we're used to seeing.
Honky Badger's a fine player.
Yeah, he's a good college player. He's not an NFL player, I don't think.
Maybe not. My point being is, right now, not only last week did you lose multiple fans for the rest of your tenure if you were there, if you're Brian Kelly. There's just people that are just not going to buy into him. There aren't. You lost more yesterday. And here's the crazy part. I understand that you said that we have to save this money, allocate this money towards Bryce Underwood, towards this recruiting class that we got coming in. They don't care. Fans down in Baton Rouge don't care anymore because of the fact that you're going to go now 8-4. The fact that you looked like the inferior opponent against Florida. The fact that now we have to question, are you going to go 7-5? The fact that you have to wonder now, is this season truly a wash? And that really we're in such deep financial shit because we put all of our emphasis on this. It's like nobody cares. Nobody cares anymore because of if you go 10-2 and you miss the college football playoff, okay. And then you save the money for Bryce Underwood, and then maybe you have to find ways to recruit when it comes to the transfer portal. But nobody cares because it was a terrible performance, and it's been terrible performances. The downfall of LSU's defense over the last 3 games must be studied. I have to see it because as soon as Connor Wigman walked off the field at Kyle Field and College Station, LSU's defense walked into a grave and has not come back out. Yeah. That's just it.
Yeah. No, I mean, when you're limited personnel-wise, you're like I said about Arkansas all year. In November, you start to fade when you start playing better teams. And as we all know, the injury bug, everyone amounts injuries. We see it all the time now. No one has the depth they used to have. It's either veterans and no one goes and recruits in the portal for depth guys. I mean, It's not really like especially at this level, that's not really a thing. So I think it just caught up to him. Again, I said going into the year, I did not think this personnel was going to be able to compete for an SEC title. And I'll say this, I think the hiring of Blake Baker and Bo Davis saved the Brian Kelly tenure. And Brian Kelly's got to go look in the mirror a little bit and be like, hey, is this just something I thought would be easy to walk into because there's so much talent in the state to be taken care of for me and I could go win a national championship and go retire? Well, dude, you got to be more involved, man. You got to be more involved. So he's got to look at himself in the mirror this offseason and see what they want to do. Now, the big question mark, everybody's going to be talking about, again, way too early to say, a kid's still got some high school playoff games, but is the future quarterback Bryce Underwood or is it Garrett Nussmeier? Those are conversations that will be happening. I personally don't think if LSU wants to win an SEC championship or national championship, the current quarterback is not on the roster right now.
Probably not, but at the same time, I'm not going to sit here and act like Garrett Nussmeier is the only problem for this LSU team. I'm not.
No, I didn't say. I don't think he.
No, I didn't say you did. I'm just saying that he's not the only problem right now.
To Cole's point too, the thing probably keeping the fan base from pulling out all the torches and pitchforks is Bryce Underwood being in the fold. Like that. I think there's probably hope that he's going to be the guy that comes in the answer. I will say this with the. Yeah, well, I mean. Welcome to big time ball. I mean,
Chris. I mean, right now, what do y'all? Again, they don't have the money to go fire him because the state's in debt. Hell, they're paying for Tigers to come to the game.
Have you seen the buyout? The conversations that people are having.
Scott Woodward, dude, he needs to be. Again, love Scott Woodward. Worked with him when I was at Texas A&M. He hired Jimbo, but Scott Woodward is a fanboy. He's a political ideology in the state of Louisiana, but is a total fanboy. And I loved him around. He'd come in, was genuinely interested in who you were recruiting and stuff like that. But he is a terrible football coach. From a contract negotiator, he wants to go win the press conference. I had heard this. He wanted to go hire, he wanted to go hire Mark Stoops, and Stephanie Remp, who was the associate AD, kept pushing Brian Kelly. So that's what ultimately got that in there. But again, you go look at the hire with Jimbo Fisher, that contract Scott Woodward had, bad. The Brian Kelly contract right now is criminal.
The buyouts are
now, give him credit. He hired Jay Johnson, who's won a national championship. Kim Mulkey, if you're big into women's basketball, sure. But those aren't the sports that really bring in the revenue money, especially when you're giving in $60 million contract to a football coach.
Dave, but just to get to Billy Napier's level of buyout, 2028. Just to get to the $26 million buyout that Florida fans are now pissed off that they're not going to do because they realize that's a lot of money. 2028. We still have 4 more years before we even get to that level for Brian Kelly. Like, that's how bad of a buyout it's going to be. That's how big of a buyout it's going to be.
Yeah, it's on Scott Woodward.
I'll say this, guys, in closing before we get to the final game, Texas, Arkansas, all the other non-conference games. I mean, whatever.
Bama Mercer.
Bama Mercer. The Brian Kelly and the conversation, if you want to call it that, he was having with Chris Hilton, that doesn't really bother me because I've seen coaches coach and I've seen coaches rip into guys. And I mean, we were just talking about Kirby Smart, bro. Like, coach him, coach. Like, guys want to be coached. The Kyron Lacey essentially getting in his ass.
Yes.
That's what I'd be worried about. Like, because to your point, Cole, it does feel like when you got guys doing that, I mean, and again, listen, I don't want to make too much of it because, Dave, you've been on a sideline. You ask anybody who's been on a sideline, it's chaos. Like, shit gets crazy. I mean, emotions are going crazy. Like, people, the intensity's at an all-time high. We're sitting back in our, in our chairs or whatever, like, watching it. But, yeah, it's not a great look to see one of your best players essentially chewing out your head coach. That's not – but I don't want to make too much of it because, again – and Dave, you can tell us firsthand, like, it's chaos on the sideline. Like, it had emotions. I've seen coaches get into like scuffles on the sideline. Like, it just happens. Like, that type of shit happens.
Alabama sidelines in the past, whatever. I mean, when I was in college, you had Nick Saban going after AJ McCarron, slapping his ass, him telling him to calm the F down when they're in Gainesville. Didn't shoot the national championship game in Atlanta when they beat Georgia. They had to kick. I forget what the kid's name was. The outside linebacker slips my name. He's going ballistic on the sideline, and somebody's like, get this guy's ass to the locker room.
Christian Miller.
Total distraction. Like, I remember that. But nobody barking back at Nick. Like, nobody. It's more like going nuts or he's going on.
Yeah, that's an interesting look, to say the least. That's a very interesting look.
Again, can we all agree that we have no problem with Brian Kelly losing it on Chris Hilton, but we have a lot of questions about Kyron Lacey losing it on Brian Kelly?
Yeah, I mean, because some guys need to be coached that way. That's the thing. Again, I was talking to Blake, my buddy Blake, about Kirby Smart, and like, people ask, why didn't he get into Carson Beck's ass? It's like, well, because Carson Beck's not going to receive that type of coaching.
A little bit more of a middle.
Stetson Bennett, I got told some shit he said to Stetson Bennett yesterday. I can't say it here because, and you know what Stetson Bennett would do? All right, coach, we're going to go drop 50.
Yeah.
Whose name escapes me? 88 at Georgia, defensive lineman, plays for the Eagles. What was his name?
Jalen Carter.
Jalen Carter, same way. He's like, Jalen Carter, you can say anything to him. He'd be like, all right, F you, go watch this. You know,
Like
he
said,
just turned that motor on.
Carson
Hey,
Beck.
not everybody, though, can get chewed like that and go
Correct.
use it. Go use it. Maybe a guy like Chris Hilton, he's like, I need to get in his ass.
Dude, that's the hardest part for these coaches at this level is managing so many different personalities.
Identifying,
in all aspects, not even just sports, managing a company, your employees. Everyone's different. They're triggered by certain things.
How do they, how do you inspire? What gets their best out of them?
And I don't know Kyron Lacey personally. I was never involved in his recruitment, so I don't know Kyron personally like that. So I don't know what kind of lights his fire under his ass.
But yeah, when you got your star player getting in your coach's ass again, that's a little bit different. You're like, okay, how much do they respect you, coach? Right now, that's the problem. Guys, finally, Texas, Arkansas. Texas gets the 20-10 win in this rivalry renewed. Guys, biggest takeaways from this one. Again, there's no such thing as a bad road win in the SEC. I don't think it was to the level, the impressive level that Texas fans probably would have liked. Quinn, 20-32, 176, 2 touchdowns. Didn't turn it over. But, guys, thoughts on this one? I got to see a little bit of this one out at the tailgates, not a ton. It felt like Texas, defensively played really well. You had 10-0 at halftime. But from what I saw and the people I talked to, still kind of felt underwhelmed with Quinn Ewers and the offense, and it was the defense, obviously, that carried them in this one.
Yeah, no, you'd be fired up. Texas's defense is legit. I don't even know how we can deny that at this point. Again, we're week 12. At some point, you are who you are, and they can even against Georgia, they got put into tough spots and still turned Carson Beck over. I think the conversation if Texas is, I think the top two defenses probably. Right now, consistency, and again, you could factor in Texas's schedule. I agree. But two things can be true at once. I think I would probably put them in a top 2 defense in the league right now. Easily top 3 in the league. It'd be Ole Miss and them, and then depending what Georgia team you get. But I still think
you mean the SEC?
Yeah.
No, 100% top 2.
But no, I think the defense today, Barron's having a great year. Again, you're not going to replace De'Vondre Sweat or Byron Murphy, but I thought Vernon Broughton, now for Collins, he played really well. Offensively, though, man, sometimes it just doesn't seem. I don't know. They can't get anything consistently going. They're not stretching the field. But I will say this, like me and Cole said on the reaction, when Arkansas cut it to 3 in the fourth quarter, and Texas had to go have 2 drives in the game, they did. So give them credit. They're good teams winning on the road. We've seen Arkansas beat another good team at home this year. Tennessee, we've also seen them totally crap the bed against Ole Miss and LSU before too. But again, we talk about Cole. Cole likes to say South Carolina is the most wild card team. I think we know South Carolina now. They're winning football games. Going into Fayetteville, Arkansas is a very I don't know what damn team I'm getting. Dude, it's kind of like, yeah, they could. I don't know if they could beat anybody on a given day, but they could be in a fourth quarter game with anybody on a given day. And I thought Texas's offense in the passing game would take advantage of a very poor Arkansas secondary. Like I said, for whatever reason, Arkansas cannot go out recruit our guy, Hudson Clark. He's been on the roster for 3 years now. He's the light-skinned pigment guy, for people not knowing who I'm talking about. They can't talk to people over there for whatever reason. They cannot out recruit him. They are limited on the back end. I thought Texas would take a little bit more advantage of that. And for whatever reason, again, I'm a big run the football guy. Love Trey Wisner. But it's like Texas is just trying to fit that square peg into a round hole.
41 rushing attempts in that game.
Dude, it's kind of just like, it's not working, Steve. It's not working, brother. This team, the secondary is bad for Arkansas, brother. I think we can go take advantage. Again, Sark's not a big, bombs over Baghdad guy, but I do love the crossing routes and the eye discipline stuff he tries to force on the defense to put them in trouble. I don't know. I don't know. It just offensively, it's like, man, I thought they had a really great game plan last week. And again, we saw it. That was against a Florida defense that played really well against LSU. And so it wasn't like a bad Florida defense we're talking about here. I thought that was their most impressive performance. Then you almost take a little bit of a step back the next week against a worse defense. It's just weird. I'm not really worried about it. It's just something to think about.
It was kind of the Vandy type of performance all over again, just on the road, just kind of finding a way. That's pretty much it.
Here's my thing. people still are trying to figure out why is Texas the number 3 team in the country? Why is Texas so highly ranked? Why is Texas getting all these flowers when their competition has been stale? Their defense is why. That's that bottom line. That's why. It is, for my money, the most mature defense in the SEC besides maybe Ole Miss. And you can make a case that it's right up there with Ole Miss. They play such a good, clean, consistent brand of football that I cannot get over. And it's so great to watch as Johnny Nansen has come on in and been able to take this team in the same way that we watched as Jeff Choate did last year, along with P.K. Witowski. They're just making mature plays. I mean, like the Michael Taft fumble recovery on the Alfred Collins strips on the strip. Most guys are trying to be the hero in that moment. They're trying to be the guy that's going to get the football, run it back for 6 points, and get all the glory. Well, 9 times out of 10, player jumbles the ball, lands up in the air, and then it lands back in the offense's hands, and it's no longer a turnover. Michael Taft just fell on the football and said, "Here, Quinn, go to work. Go do this. Just ice the clock." They did. 6 sacks on the day, 9 tackles for losses, a turnover by Jahdae Barron, who played phenomenal and has been really an underrated player this year in the SEC for how they utilize him. And then when the offense needed to get some execution, they did. I'm not saying it was a great game plan because it wasn't. Again, Dave brought this up. Look at what happened 2 weeks ago when Jackson Dart marched on into Fayetteville. He's at a school record with what I would consider a worse offensive line. That's a school record. Oh, and by the way, no Trey Harris in that game. You didn't have that with Quinn. You know what Quinn is at this point in the year. You know that he is a dude that's going to get you 4 or 5 deep shots down the field, and you got to capitalize. And if you don't, well, unfortunately, what more can you say? I mean, at that point, he is who he is. But I'll tell you what, when you need a touchdown in the red zone, you got a touchdown in the red zone. Matthew Golden is the most underappreciated wide receiver in the SEC this year. I'm going to stand on that. 8 touchdowns, 6 of which have come from inside the 20. Number 2 is the number 1 option for Quinn Ewers every single time.
He makes an impressive catch in the corner of the end zone, I feel like, every week.
Every single
week.
I'm
just like that one he had, I'm like, oh, that's incomplete. I'm like, he caught that? Yeah. Like,
last week, the 27th.
He did it at Vandy, too, when I saw him. I'm like, how did he catch? Yeah, he's fun.
Last week at the 27-yard touchdown pass at the back corner of the end zone, just phenomenal play. Yeah. Like we don't talk about him the same way that we do about Isaiah Bond or the same way that we do about guys like Luther Burden. And I'm not saying that he's at the same skill level, but what I am saying is that he has earned his flowers this year and has been a constant threat and a constant security blanket for Quinn Ewers. It stepped on up. And I thought that what was really important was it was very easy for a team like Texas to allow the momentum to shift in favor of Arkansas, because Arkansas is going to finish 6-6 or 7-5, or they could have finished 8-4, and it would have been a really good year. But momentum was on their side. This would have been another moment where you say, hey, Sam Pittman, he's got the program trending in the right direction. And they said, nope, we're going to shut that shit up really fast. We're going to force a turnover. We're going to go ahead and march down the clock. We're going to milk as much time off as possible. Congratulations, we get a 10-point victory. Yes, the offense does have its question marks. Yes, you do wonder what needs to be fixed if this team wants to play consistent. But with that defense, once again, that's all I really care about. Like, if you tell me that I'm going to get 4 catches of 20 yards down the field per game for Quinn Ewers, and they don't drop, and they're perfect passes, and then you throw in the run game, and that defense gives up 285 yards, 315 yards, 10 points, you'll win a playoff game. You'll win multiple playoff games that way. So my big takeaway is that they have a mature defense that's making the right calls, the right reads. People are stepping on up. Johnny Nason was one of the best hires of the offseason. They have a number 1 wide receiver that we can trust when they're inside the red zone of Matthew Golden. They have some things they have to work on. The good news is Kentucky and Texas A&M are going to be able to show you who you truly are going into the postseason.
And again, guys, I would just echo this for Texas fans out there. There's no such bad thing as a road win in the SEC. It's just bottom line. And in a rivalry game like this, I thought Texas would look more impressive because as Dave was talking, and especially I think we saw it in the first drive, I thought Texas would – I thought it was going to be a really, really long day for that Arkansas secondary.
We all did.
And yeah, I mean, we all did. And I don't know, Dave, maybe the T-Will slide is just kind of going away a little bit. T-Will.
I wouldn't go that much. 2 weeks ago, they got freaking torched.
Right. Good point.
The thing is, it's like we're week 12. It's like everybody, I mean, even the fans in this group, everybody's like day traders to an extent. I know I'm talking week to week, so I guess week to week day traders, but it's like we got to put the big picture together. Like I think we try to make assumptions off just what they do last week, and then we're going to roll into that mindset into the next week. It's like, oh shoot, it's kind of like, oh man, Georgia's going to get their tail whipped, man. Did you see what Ole Miss did to them? It's like, I mean, Tennessee's just as good. It's like they gave up 0 sacks, folks. Like teams do make adjustments in the game plan. That's why I thought Georgia in that game with Mike Bobo and them would adjust, because they're not just going to sit in back there at one landmark and let James Pearson come tee off on him. So it is about adjusting. It is funny though. It's a wild season. One of the few seasons you can't take week to week. I think in the past you could kind of go like, yeah, that kind of translates over to the next week. I mean, we see it. I think Texas had their best offensive performance last week against a pretty good Florida defense. We'd seen them performing well before that and yesterday against LSU. And then they come against a real struggling Arkansas defense who just got put up, 600 yards on them by Jackson.
Over.
Watkins alone. Yeah. I mean, and then you're like, oh, yeah, they'll have a shot to go. Texas should win this going away, you would think. No. Fourth quarter game, 3-point game.
Guys, any major takeaways from the non-conference games? I figure not. I mean, again, just to highlight, Bama beats Mercer 52-7. Texas A&M beats New Mexico State 38-3.
No Diego Pavia.
Auburn beats ULM 48-14, and Kentucky beats Murray State 48-6. I mean, everybody just kind of handled their cupcakes and put up numbers and
no takeaways. But here's what we got to close out with. I think chaos occurred in college football yesterday.
BYU losing to Kansas.
Not just that. So we have that game.
Washington State, they're out.
You also have to factor in Kansas State is now out because they can't go to the Big 12 championship. And Arizona State is now in. So if you are looking at this from an SEC perspective, you had a lot of good graces last night to get 5 teams in. Here's what you're looking for this week. This is what you need. You got to have Notre Dame lose. Yeah. And then the argument, I think, is a moot point. I think the other part that's really important here, the other part that's really, really poignant, Indiana is not going to be left out of the playoff, win or loss, against Ohio State if it is close. If it is a close game, they are going to at least keep them in the conversation because it is a Big Ten school. It is a prime time team that has been the talk of college football this year. People are going to want to see them on a national stage. On top of that, you also have the margin of error in victory, and they're going to say that the SEC bias comes in. But if it's a 20-point loss, 30-point loss, bets are off. The best thing right now is, for my money, Army beating Notre Dame. And if Army beats Notre Dame
or USC, if Notre Dame loses, the SEC is guaranteed 5 teams in the playoff. I think, for my money at this point, because it becomes a very clean pathway. And also, real fast, you wouldn't hate this either. You really wouldn't. Maybe Boise State loses and John Summerall and Tulane gets to go to the playoff. They're the best group of 5 team. They are. I'm sorry, they are. Rodney Maynard in the comments makes a good point. If Indiana, nobody's talking about this, but what if Indiana beat Ohio State?
They're not leaving Ohio State out. That brand is too big.
No. I'm just saying that affects the seedings. I mean, that's going to be
100%
Oregon in the Big Ten championship.
Well, here's the other part that's really, really important here. And Dave and I have talked about this so much because of the playoff. The 12-team playoff was built for one team and one team only.
Yeah, I have no idea how Penn State is not getting talked about. Like, who have you won? Who have you beaten, dude? And again, like Cole said, they built this for James Franklin and the boys in State College. But
if they lose to Minnesota, can we please have a conversation?
God, yes, they're definitely.
Can we please have a conversation?
You get one loss right now. You're kind of sitting there. You're like, all right, the only real game you played, you lost. I mean, I don't really. What's the wins on the resume there, boys? I got it. But that's never even automatic. It's almost like you're in the club. And like Indiana's sitting there undefeated. Like, you let Penn State in and you're thinking about letting us out if we lose to Ohio State just like they did at home. Like, okay. Like,
could a 5th SEC team get in? We'll talk about it on Tuesday night, guys, when the playoff rankings come out. We'll debate it, break it all down, all that good stuff. But, guys, Week 12 officially in the books. Again, thank you so much, Athens, Georgia, the fine folks, great dogs and balls we kicked it with, but especially the great Georgia fans that welcomed us with open arms, felt a lot of embrace all throughout the weekend, especially yesterday, excuse me, on game day. And guys, we now roll into week 13, the second to last week of the season. Don't shed a tear, but we are reaching that point. And the SEC Unfiltered Tour will roll on, by the way. We are headed to the land of Hook'em. Austin, Texas, and Kentucky, which, I don't know, a couple weeks ago I thought was going to be a blowout. I mean, might be, but could be an issue again. Anyway, we'll see. We'll talk about all that this week. Again, guys, appreciate you all tuning in. Make sure you like, subscribe, turn notifications. Check us out via podcast, wherever we get those. You can also find us across all social media platforms, as well as our website, secunfiltered.com. Gentlemen, appreciate you taking the time. For Dave Shumate and Cole Thompson, I'm Chris Phillips. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in, and we will catch you all on the other side.